Hello. Just testing my audio real fast.
Hello,
Making sure I don't have any
testing
echo.
my audio real fast.
Making sure I don't have any
Testing
echo.
my audio real fast.
Making sure I don't have any
Testing
echo.
my audio real fast.
Making sure I don't have any echo.
Testing my audio real fast.
Making sure I don't have any echo. Alright, let me unplug that headset that I think's picking it up.
Alright, let me unplug that headset that I think's picking it up.
Alright, let me unplug that headset that I think's picking it up. Alright, let me unplug that headset that I think's picking it up. Alright, let me unplug that headset that I think's picking it up. Alright, how's the echo now? Is it gone? Hopefully. Heck yeah. Alright, hello. Welcome back. Last week we had tons and tons of hardware problems. The webcam wasn't working. The echo was bad on the mic. Things were freezing. I think everything is fixed now. We've got curtains now. We got a cool new light in the corner. I think we're ready to roll this week. So if you're new here, my name's Andrew. I work at Chroma Golem, a game studio making games for really whatever we want, but we are focusing on AI mechanics. So trying to look at the new AI technologies and looking for. I am a founder of Chroma Golem, one of the two co-founders. We got Tony Sprocket in the chat as well. We're looking at the latest AI tech and asking ourselves like, what can this let us do in games that wasn't possible before? So obviously, I mean, everybody's talked to ChatGPT. You can talk to NPCs. You can talk to whatever you want. But we've been putting out demos every few months for the last like 6 months or so, and just kind of exploring different ways that we can use AI. You'll kind of see a lot of those ways in this demo that we're working on now, that we're working on this week. So we've got item generation, we've got NPC generation, we've got quest generation. We've got some AI logic that like asks the NPCs if the item that you gave them solves the quest or the problem that they had. Lots of cool stuff. I think what we'll do is we'll start out with like maybe 10 minutes or so of just playing the game so everyone can see where it's at. We were also in the middle of like tons and tons of different features last week, so everything was very work in progress feeling, and there were I think 5 different things we were working on that were like 90% done. So we're finally at a state this week where all that work in progress stuff is done. We can start on some new stuff and just kind of polish stuff up. So let me find a window. Oh, nope, not info leaking myself. But if we head on over to chromagolem.itch.io, actually, we shouldn't play from there. This is the old version. You should definitely play that. We're working on the new version to release, but it's not quite polished up. So if you want to play like a nice polished version before all these features that we've added, you can head over to chromagolem.itch.io, click Elixir Emporium, play it in your browser for free. But we're going to go ahead and play it in Unity here because we're working on a lot of new stuff that's not in that build yet. But basically in this game, the gist is you are an alchemist. You are traveling from town to town, and you have the ability to combine items however you want. So if you've ever played a game like Little Alchemy, or I think I always forget the other popular one in this genre. I played a lot of Little Alchemy, but basically you can drag and drop items on top of each other. It combines them. We have a lot of recipes that we start the game with. So if you mix like air and fire, you get steam and so on. But once you've progressed through all those recipes, we fall back on AI to basically say, all right, what does the player get when they combine air and a nuclear reactor or whatever items they've created, which is pretty cool. So you jump on in. We've got a couple different starts that you can start with just because we're experimenting with different items. But you can jump on in, start however you want, and you start at a hard-coded town for now. The start town is always hard-coded in, so we can do a little more like story and stuff, but once you start helping people in this town, you unlock travel, so you can travel from town to town, and each town has different NPCs. You can always travel back to towns you've been at and go see those old NPCs. Excuse me. And each NPC that you'll see has a like a role or job that's somewhat themed to the town that they're in. Their problem that they have is also themed to the town they're in and their job. We throw a couple random jobs in that sometimes don't make sense just for a little creativity, putting the AI through its paces of like, all right, you're in a town surrounded by volcanoes on every side and you are a ice fisherman. What's your problem? It's cool to see the problems they come up with. But you start out, you've got your town panel here, you've got a workbench here, and you've got all your inventory here. We've got kind of a god mode thing going on right now, so I can test all the items. But basically you can just drag and drop items in to your workbench, and you can combine them however you want. So I don't know that we have a recipe for like combining two bees. I think we might. We do. It's a swarm. So that one combined instantly, that's how you know it's like a pre-generated one. But if you combine something like ash and swarm, which we don't have a recipe for, you'll see a little loading thing. We ask the AI like, hey, what do you get when you combine these? Oh, you get a plague cloud. So let's take a look at some of these NPCs, see what their problems are. We got Eadwolf, a guide. Whenever he is near a volcano's peak, his shadow begins to speak, uttering prophecies of doom and despair. Frightens his clients, can't do his job. Can we do something that quiets his shadow or prevents his shadow from appearing or anything? So maybe we can find something. I guess we can also grab some free items here. All this is kind of like a almost like a menu simulator for, if you can imagine this in more of a like RPG setting where you're going out and you can collect a lot of free stuff like sticks off the ground, grass off the ground, air, stuff that doesn't make sense to sell in the shop. You can go cut trees, whatever. There is also a shop, so you can buy some more refined items. You can also craft most of these from cheaper ones. As you craft items, you also discover all these recipes, so the recipes that the AI generates will be different every time you play, but they'll be consistent throughout your run. So now that we've created Plague Cloud, if we ever wanted more Plague Clouds in this run, we know we can get them by combining Ash and Swarm. We know that we can create swarms by combining a bunch of bees. So if, for example, there were a bunch of bees around town, we can go collect all those, make a bunch of swarms, buy a bunch of ash, make a bunch of Plague Cloud, and do what we want with it. So it gives you start out with a lot of randomness and like discovering what things are. So like bark and mint, I don't know what that makes. Minty bark tea, sure. But once you've discovered a lot of these recipes, that randomness slowly gets extracted away, so you can get more predictable results. You can, if you go talk to somebody like Charles the Miner and you're like, ooh, he would really like, Plague Swarm, you know how to make it. Or this recipe book fills up really, really fast, so you get a lot more idea of what kinds of items you can make. But this guy, we'll look at the other guy's problem again, but we'll just check out what this guy wants as well. Each time he ventures into the mines, the silver he mines transforms into coal. Okay, that seems pretty bad. I think we have... Let's do like a salve and maybe some silver. Oh, we don't have silver. Was there silver in the shop? The shop is all random. It's randomized every time you help someone, so we could, if we thought there was a good chance of getting silver in the shop, we could go help other people, and then if we wanted to do like silver and salve, we can come back to this guy. But doesn't look like we have silver actually. So maybe salve and bucket. We got a healing potion. That was our last bucket. So maybe we give him some restorative ash that he can put on that coal and return it to silver. We'll see if he thinks that will help. I think he does. Beam of hope in his darkened life. He feels it in his bones that this wondrous concoction will reverse that woeful curse, and transform the coal back to precious silver. Nice. So he gave us some gold as a reward. He gave us 3 gold because we were helpful. If he doesn't think it helps, he can give you 1 gold. He also gave us a bunch of items as a tip. Which we haven't really built the UI to show exactly what they gave you, but it's a lot more noticeable when you start out with just a few items. Excuse me. But Charles, we can now dismiss. He goes away, and he'll come back later with another problem. But you can also see that we've helped him once, so we're building up our friendship score with him. We need to customize that conversation that happens from then on. We aren't passing the previous conversation that you had with him into the second time you meet with him, so he still introduces himself. He doesn't know that you've helped him before. Maybe we can add that today, and so he'll be like, hey, thanks for helping me last time with this. That really helped. Now I'm having this problem, and so on. So I think that'll be really cool for having that consistency. As you like build this friendship and talk back and forth with this person. So they'll be able to come back, you'll be able to build up that friendship score, and then once it gets high enough, you can actually recruit him into your party and take him with you to other towns. So we're gonna build in some perks for each person to have in your party. So maybe miners will give you ore, or like an apothecary will give you potion ingredients, stuff like that. And also some kind of cool, like an enchanter might let you drag an item onto them and they enchant it, or something like that. But you can see now that we've helped someone, and in the background we have generated enough locations to enable travel. We can now travel to a new location. And speaking of the party, right now it's just 5 gold to travel to a new location, but once you get more people in your party, it costs more, so you want to kind of balance, like, who do you really want to bring along? And one other thing that we'll probably want to change a little bit is how varied these neighboring locations are. Because right now we're in a town surrounded by volcanoes on every side. Kind of makes sense that there's like volcano-y things in every location. But it's kind of boring from like a gameplay new location standpoint. Like, you're not discovering something new. these are all kind of samey. So maybe if we head on over to like the Crimson Peak, this is the largest volcano that looms over that town, which is cool that this is all AI generated based on like its neighbor locations. So it gets itself a little description, it generates its own NPCs, and then they'll have problems based on this volcano as well, and so on. So let's see what Brunhilde wants. Each time I assist in birthing beneath the crimson skies, the newborn's first cries echo unnaturally across the valley. That's a little terrifying. Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem. Oh, you're a midwife. That's why you have that problem. Okay. So let's go with like, this is probably going to make like a salve or something. Healing bandage. Let's do some ginger and fungus. See what we get. Medicinal brew is a good base for us to add something. Maybe we do some crushed up moss, ground moss powder. Just kind of exploring. We're still unlocking all these recipes, so we're just seeing what we're getting, seeing if there's anything that might be useful. We can always browse through here and be like, oh, is there anything in here that might be useful? I don't think so, but as you play, you unlock more and more stuff in this list, which I think is really cool. So you can kind of have a menu of, is anything here useful? Can I make that thing? Or do I need to keep making new things to discover more? So maybe we give her a healing herb poultice. And oh yeah, they didn't think it would help. Okay, that's fine. But she goes away. She'll come back. We didn't actually help her successfully, so we didn't get that friendship point. But we can now head on back to Gerend where we started. You can kind of see like, oh, okay, it's generating this world as we progress outward. I see the NPCs aren't really loading. Oh, I guess because it was creating new problems for them. So we should probably actually save those old problems. And I mean, I guess does it make sense for them to have the same problems they did when you left? Probably, and then it cuts down on the AI generations we do. But we have all the same NPCs, we've got the friendship scores still the same. That's kind of where we're at. Like, this world is generated as you go. You have tons and tons of items that you can combine and create and discover. Each location has its own list of free stuff that you can grab, which is kind of just a placeholder for now, just to let the player get more items when they're not starting out with 200 of them. Yeah, so I think we can head on into some code. I think what we want to start with now is, I think let's redo the item system almost entirely. Right now, everything is... Items are basically just a string name. And there's a couple hard-coded items that have a value associated with them. And that's how we know what to put in here. We basically just poll the item database for, give me a bunch of random items that cost 0. And then for the store, it's give me a bunch of random items that don't cost 0, and we just set them all to 1. But I think it'd be really cool if the player could kind of play more of a merchanting route. If you're like, oh yeah, berries are really cheap. Maybe I buy a bunch of berries, I make some jam, I maybe use some fire on that jam, well, maybe not get sticky flames, but let's go back to some jam. We got jam and like ginger. What do we got there? Ginger marmalade probably could sell for more than the sum of its parts. Like, I think it would be cool if you could play as a role of like buying low, combining stuff, making new items, selling it high. I think for that to feel really good and not just be a grindy thing, I think you'd probably want to adjust the price of some items based on your location. So if you let's give Charles some ginger marmalade real fast so we can unlock travel again. It unlocks after the first time you help someone in every town. But if you were looking at these nearby places and you're like, oh, okay, we got Ashen Fields, Crimson Peak, Lava Lakes, lots of really hot places, and we have a bunch of ice, maybe we can buy some stuff in this town for cheap, like fire's probably cheap. I mean, I guess it doesn't really help here, but you can basically know what kind of stuff that these people might want. They probably want the stuff to make them cold or make them immune to the heat or be able to grow plants in the heat, that sort of stuff that they'll probably have quests for. But you could also start creating things for them that they might buy for a higher amount in the store. So we probably won't do that sort of store adjustment on items in this stream, just because I want to think through how we want to do that. But we can go ahead and start building the system that allows items to have value and have like properties on them that can be randomized. I want to do some tooltips, so I mean, all these aren't really like equipment and stuff, but if you start as more of a, I think artificer has silver and like metals and things, so if you were to combine maybe obsidian and like steel, you start getting like weapons and armor and stuff. So I think it'd be really cool to be able to also generate an item type. So you got weapon, armor, material, blah blah blah, and then also maybe some basic stats. So you could theoretically, in this RPG element that we haven't built yet, you could start equipping items and start trying to like craft yourself better items. Probably want a lot more control over the stats and stuff in some way. But we can think about that later. But you could also, if, for example, one of these NPCs was an adventurer or a knight or something, and you had them join your party, maybe their perk is that you can give them a sword or some armor, and they go out into a dungeon, fight some monsters, and then they bring you back the spoils of their adventure. And the items that you get, like the number of items or the quality of items, is based on how good the weapon is that you gave them. Something like that. So, let's go ahead and build that item system, I guess. Right now we basically have, let's see what we've got. We've got the recipe database that's kind of the single source of truth for all items and recipes. So it's been a while since I've been in the recipe database, and I've been working mostly on like API stuff the last week, so it might take me a minute to get back into it. But basically we have a bunch of hard-coded, well, we don't use this anymore. We do have a bunch of hard-coded items somewhere. Let me see if I can. I think ice is one of them, surely. Global starting data, right. So we do hard code in a bunch of items and their values here. This is just when the game loads, and if they don't have a value, they just default to 1. But I think what we'll want to do is give the recipe database a method that lets us pass in an item name, and then it passes that name to the AI and says, like, hey, this is a new item in this game, generate X, Y, and Z about it. And then that's when we create the actual item in the game. I guess we could potentially do that on the actual item itself, the item object, but I don't think that we have access to coroutines, from just like a regular C# object. We need to do this from something in Unity, basically. But we can probably call it from here. Like, this is how we're implicitly, if you just create an item from a string name, this is probably where we want to do exactly what this comment says, I guess. Fetch to see if there's already an item in the item database with that name, return it. Otherwise, queue up a generation for it. And then the other part of this is we have this prompt here for, we started calling them elements. Maybe I'll rename this to item combining. But this is the AI prompt for combining items. So if you pass it in air plus fire, it spits out steam. If you pass in fire plus fire, it spits out wildfire, and so on. That's just some examples we gave it of like the vibe and tone that we want. But the actual recipe that we insert in goes here. But we don't want this to spit out just the string name anymore. We probably want it to spit out the whole item with like stats and type and whatever. So we'll want to change this as well. But I think maybe we can start, let's grab this whole prompt. Let's create a new prompt. And then instead of just renaming that one to item combining, let's call this one item combining. Let's get that working with this new template that we want. And then we'll switch over the systems that use element combining to use this instead. So I think what we'll do, instead of passing in even just like string name plus string name, we might pass in the full items, because I think that'll make a lot more sense when we start putting attributes and stuff on the items. So if you have like a cursed grand sword that is like minus 100 move speed or something, and you combine that with like a potion, I don't know, maybe it could either go like curing that curse off the sword and reducing the attribute, but still getting like a grand sword or something. Or it could go the opposite direction of like you get a cursed potion that when you drink it reduces your move speed. Like those small little tidbits that make it clear that the AI is looking at all of the aspects of the item instead of just its name, I think will be both really cool, but also kind of really sells the AI component here, because there's just so many more options or potential of what you can create. So it kind of takes things to the next level of like, you're not just combining items, but you're also combining the attributes on those items in some way. So let's say you're tasked with taking two items, coming up with a clever, smart answer for what they're combined into in a small alchemy crafting RPG. The ingredients will be given one per line in the item format, and your result must also be a single line in the same item format. Okay, so air and fire, we got name, air. can't use type because that's a reserved name, so we'll go item type material, I guess. And maybe we want to, I don't know exactly how we want to structure the attributes, so let's just say attributes. I don't think that's a reserved name. Let's give that an empty one. And then maybe, usually let's do fire. We'll get a little bit more RPG-y with these examples instead of the elements. Because we want to show off that there's more item types than just weapons. So we want to give this one an attribute just as an example. Maybe we can say I mean, it doesn't really matter how we do it right now because they don't do anything. We could even just say like +5 agility. Something like that. We could structure it more like make a hash of properties and their modifiers. We probably want to pass in like a dictionary or like a reference list of all the possible attributes that we want to enable in the game. But I think we'll want to leave that pretty open-ended right now just to see like what happens, because it'd be cool depending on how we implement those attributes to be able to expand that later on based on if you're making a lot of games or a lot of items about like mining. Maybe you have mining speed as an attribute, but maybe one comes up with like efficiency, like how many ores you get per mining. Like we can probably generate some of the like logic or at least some like multipliers of how we want to put these attributes into play. I mean, even if it's as simple as like later on you mine by using a pickaxe on a rock, which is kind of the same prompt, but we'll tweak it a little bit. But you can say in that prompt, like, this is the pickaxe you're using. It has these attributes. What do you get as a result of using this pickaxe on a rock? We can ask the AI, like, oh, okay, this pickaxe has +5 ore results or whatever it is, and it just kind of just works. Obviously, it will take a lot of like polishing and making sure it feels good and works consistently, but it depends on really how we are implementing it. We could get that working. But let's go ahead and say, let's just put a random attribute on this. And then for this output, we say name flame sword, item type, weapon, attributes. We give it agility 5 and fire damage 5. Something like that. Like, doesn't super matter. I guess we need to do this. So we'll go with an attributes as a object for now. Hi. And maybe also on the weapons themselves, we probably want some other attributes like this damage. And then maybe instead of adding fire damage here, we can just increase that damage. And we'll do some funky polymorphism to make sure that that all works too. Cool, so that's one example for the AI. We should probably do at least one more. We could do 2 more. Let's say something, we could maybe do armor and maybe like a potion. So if we did name steel, item type, material, And what could combine with steel to make like a armor plate? Item type. And maybe we can get away with not passing in an attributes hash if it's empty. But I want to make sure that we are consistent with the AI to tell it that this is always the format you want. I don't want them like thinking you can add or remove keys and so on. Say speed 5. So that's another example. These don't have to be real, but let's do some sort of potion or something. So name, healing potion. And if we mix a healing potion with a fire, maybe, and we get like potion of fire resistance, maybe. And we'll run this as an example below once we write this to make sure it all is doing what we expect it to. And there's a lot more we need to think through on like consumables specifically, like just how they work functionally. When you drink it, do you health restore immediately? Is this over time? Does the potion of fire resistance have a duration, efficiency, blah, 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 but we'll get there. This is just very basic so we can get this system working and actually generate items that have these properties, and then we'll figure out how we want to implement them to be used. Cool. So please be creative with your generations. This seems fine. We tweaked this a lot originally to get kind of the item combining that we have now, but it could be improved a lot. So let's say do not add any other text. You may add or remove attributes in the attributes hash, but you must not add or remove keys in the parent item structure. Sure. So let's copy this as an example. If we were to pass in this but give it water, what kind of results would we get? We've got an ice blade with additional damage. It's got cold damage, however we want to implement that. What if we pass in air? Wind blade, additional damage. Alright, let's make this a long sword. Oh, I guess the air gave you more agility. That's cool. Wind/true, whatever that means. We can... we'll show this probably in the tooltip. We might end up doing some sort of filter function to say, like, here are the valid attribute keys. For everything else, filter it out, or maybe just hide it somehow. or somewhere, and we can always implement some of those features later. But if we do air and water, or let's do a knife, I guess, and let's say obsidian. An obsidian dagger gives you some stealth, sure. Bow and arrow with something extremely heavy, granite. A stone bow, which is very durable. Okay. Oh yeah, I guess we probably do want durability on items. I was thinking through that before, because we want to have this tool system where you collect resources by basically using your axe on trees or using your pickaxe on rocks or ore. And that'll kind of generalize to you can use any item on any in-world object, and you might get something back. So if you use a bucket on water, you might get water. Or use a bucket on a tree, maybe you get maple syrup, something like that. So for those tools, right now, when you combine two items, obviously they both disappear and you get one resulting item. But for using items on things rather than combining things, we want to use that sort of durability. So you can go buy or craft your own axe or buy one from like the general store or something. And this axe can be used 50 times. And then you go to a forest outside of town, use axe on this tree, use axe on this tree. Probably some sort of, RuneScape-y like cutting animation or something. We'll see if we can generate animations on the fly like that. But that's kind of the direction we're going in. Of we want to have these tools so not only can you combine items, but you can use items on stuff in the world and get stuff back. But I think this is working pretty well. I'm going to just play around with a little bit more. If we were to combine, let's try some other things other than weapons. Let's say defense 5, and let's give this an empty attributes hash, see if it adds any based on knowing that it can from the prompt. We've got a granite wall shield, which is very heavy. And I guess we could give items a weight too, because we are going to have probably a limited inventory, but I feel like the game might be more fun if it's an unlimited inventory, just because the nature of the game is kind of based around that crafting and collecting as many items as you can and then going into a long crafting session. But is it rewarding to force the player to like pick and choose what items they keep versus throw away, or like we can force kind of this cyclical go out and collect a bunch of items, come back to town to do some combining, or just like store them in a chest or something, and then go back out and collect more items. Like we can force that night and day system type thing by having a weight on your inventory or a cap on how many items you can hold. So maybe we will add a weight to items and just have the inventory cap like really, really large. So we can always reduce it later if we think that it's fun. But hopefully it should just be a wall on preventing players from just spending like 5 hours straight collecting items. Let's try a few more things. I want to try some weapons. Not weapons. I want to try a couple more armors, and I want to try some like materials and maybe some potions. So if we say maybe greaves, granite greaves. What happens if we do a flame sword and greaves. What do you get? Blazing greaves. Okay, that seems fine. We could have gone either way. And that's kind of the nature of when you start, it's all very random, but once you've kind of combined some stuff, you're starting to see the patterns, but also these recipes that you discover. Like if you combine the flame sword and greaves again, you always get the blazing greaves. So you kind of know what you're going to get at that point. Let's try a potion of fire resistance with a flame sword. We get a blazing defender, which has health restore. We'll see how that works. Fire resistance, damage, and so on. Okay, so lastly, maybe let's do just some water material. And we forget the attributes array. Is it still going to be fine? We got a consumable, potion of elemental resistance. That's cool because it's fire plus now also water. It does have fire and water resistance. Okay, so that's cool. Yeah, I like that. So basically we have this now. We need to, let's add in those attributes that we know that we're going to want to all these examples. So we want value 0, weight 1, durability 1. And that will probably be the case for many things. But let's say the sword has value of 3, weight of 3, durability of 10, and then we can kind of just make up fake values wherever we go. And we can always come back to these because this is going to provide also the scale of numbers to the AI that we're working with. So this guy, we got 1 plus 3 value. Let's say 5 value now. It's a weight of 3 still. Durability of 15 went up. Cool. Let's value 1, weight 1, durability 1. Let's actually increase that weight to like 3. You can do it, Unity. Leather 111 is fine. So with this guy, maybe now we have a value of 5 as well, or a value of 3. We have a weight of 5 and a durability of 10. So let's add it to these remaining examples. Let's do 1 or 2 tests. Let's make sure it's all good. And then we can go start like the serialization and deserialization. So healing potion, value 1, weight 1, durability 1. That seems fine. Same with fire. Let's make sure it's the same as above. Well, I guess it'd be value 0. And this guy, value of 2. Sure. And so now if we do water with value of 0, potion of fire resistance with a value of 2, what do we get in our resulting potion of elemental resistance? Has a value of 3. Weight and durability is fine. I think durability will do like how many times you can use this item, just combining it or using it on objects. This seems fine. So now the output has all those properties that we wanted. Cool. So let's go ahead and, now that we have our prompt in place, let's go look in the code. So where we combine items, well, before we do that, let's make sure that, maybe we want to also add description. Let's do that later. Description and rarity we'll add into the prompt later. Item name, I forgot name is a reserved word as well. So let's go quickly change out all these names to item names. Just, we need to match the keys here so we can serialize correctly. Let's generate an example. Oops, let's change them in here as well. But we did get the item name that we wanted. Cool. So now we have item name, we've got our value already. Let's do a public int weight, public int durability. Cool. And maybe we just do a placeholder here of public class item attribute, and that's going to have actually let's stick that on the item itself. So we've got a public dictionary of string to int, and it's called attributes. And I think that'll serialize just fine. We'll want to double check that. But that should pull in health restore 10, fire resistance 90, and so on. Cool, so it should be ready for us to take this output and serialize it or deserialize it into an item. So this output item type is one we don't have, but let's just add in the string right now. And then value, weight, durability attributes. Value, weight, durability attributes. Cool. So let's go look at where we are creating these items. 10 places. Load item data. Right. We're using new item in a lot of places as like our interface to say we want to create an item that has this name. So I think what we'll want to do is in our recipe database say public item find or create item. And so in here we can say if an item already exists with this name, return it. Here you go. If it doesn't exist, then we need to create it. It gets a little funky because the creation is asynchronous, so whatever we basically need some way to pass through like a callback of where to pass the generated text back to, or pass the deserialized item data into. But let's placeholder this for now. And let's just say in our global starting data, very start of the game, first items we're creating, what will happen is, where's my cursor? We load in here, we say all items to add new item air. So item, can I put it at the top? No, I cannot. Item's going to say here, new item, calls this. And so now we want to say if, well, do we actually have access to the recipe database from here? I don't think we do. I think actually all these places that we're calling new item, we're going to need to edit them to say like recipe database dot find or create item. And that's probably fine. I mean, we have this nice placeholder here for the implicit conversion, but we're still going to need to do the same. We can't just say find or create item from here because we don't have a reference to that recipe database. So let's go ahead and start it with air. Let's say recipe database dot instance dot find or create item air. And then here, I guess we can do string name is what we want. We have all items here, which is where we'll want to iterate through to find this item. We should keep that sorted alphabetically probably, just because there's going to be a lot of items and we want to make sure that we get best case search times. And I guess we can optimize that, but it doesn't matter. Let's see. How do we want to do this? So we can say, I mean, it'd be best if this were actually a dictionary. So we get the O of 1 lookup time. And then we can say, like, if it has the key, return it. Let's see here. A couple different ways we could do it. So if we did something like this, it's almost like we need an item database class to begin with, but we would do something like recipe database dot instead of passing in this reference to all items, we just call find or create item. It sticks it in the item database. You know what? Let's start with something a little simpler that we can reduce the abstractions a little bit. We can just say create item. And then we know, I mean, obviously we're not going to find any existing items here. We can say create item air. And here we can say if item dot has key or dot contains key item name. If the item's already there, we can say return. Otherwise, we can do whatever creation we want. So that's how we handle creating an item. And so here we can say if the item database contains the key, we can return that item. Otherwise, we want to create it and return it. The problem is, obviously, between this line and this line, or between this line and this line, we are going to pass it off to that AI to fill in all the properties. So, I mean, I guess we're returning the item itself, so it's a reference to that item. So if we were to update it with, update the value and durability and stuff after it's been returned, There's some potential race conditions of like if we're immediately reading that item or whatever, but it might be fine for now. So we can use this system currently to basically have a consistent database of items that are reused. And if an item already exists, then it'll use that item and its properties. So you might get like, if you have a golden sword, when you first create it, it might still have that value of like 0. Unless we... Yeah, like we can modify the item properties even when they're returned. But if we've already updated like the UI based on those properties and like desynced that reference, it's not going to automatically re-update the UI wherever that item's properties have updated. So maybe that's probably going to be an issue, but at least I think we should go this route, and then when we see that is an issue, we'll at least know that that is the cause, and we'll know how to fix it instead of trying to think through every possible way that it could be an issue and planning for it. So let's go ahead and let's see here. So if we... Right. How do you use multiple cursors? Is that working? No. Let's just... It's going to be faster even with Googling. Oh, Visual Studio, multiple cursors. Oh, press Alt while selecting a block. That's way easier. Okay, so we just drag down here, select all those, and we say recipe database.instance.create item. And let's actually give some defaults here. Int value equals 1, int durability equals 1, and what was our other one? Weight. Let's do weight, then durability. I think that simplifies. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so over yonder, now we can say 0. Extra parentheses. Cool. And we get to use our multiple cursors here, which is nice. We've got recipe database.instance.create item there, and they will all use the defaults. Recipe database.instance.create item with this guy, and we've got value first, but we also want to give these guys a durability of like 10. And we got that guy mixed up. And extra parentheses on those. Oopsies. Just started hailing. That's cool. It's so sunny outside and it's warm, so I don't know why it's hailing, but looks cool. Cool. Let's get back to this. We've got recipe database dot instance dot create item and over down. These guys have a default value of 2. Cool. And then we'll probably end up doing something similar for the recipes, but this is good for now. So the problem with this, though, is, I mean, at the very start of the game, we're going to kick off how many generations to the AI. It'd be nice if there was simultaneously a way to do like lazy loading on generating information about an item, but also have it already ready when the user wants it. We definitely can just hard code in all the values on these guys, so create item probably doesn't even need, let's even rename it to create item without AI. So we know that that is an immediate thing that can happen. Just prepares the item. And maybe even, it's alright, bud. Dimitri is afraid of the hail. Let's go ahead and return that item. So down here, when we're finding or creating an item, we can trigger some AI on it. Item name. And then we can say like to do created item dot, or like how do we want to do this? Just fill item details with AI, something like that, where it'll take in the properties that we already have on this item and just fill out the rest, kind of like the, what's it called, where you, can't remember what it's called, where you generate maps by saying like, here's all the surrounding details, fill in the inside. Wave function collapse. This will take all of the properties that we already have on the item and it'll use them to generate the properties that we're missing. Cool. So these no longer kick off a bunch of AI generations at the start. We do still have the problem of, for example, if a player starts with these in their inventory, maybe that's when we want to kick them off and generate those details if we are missing any. Still a generation for every starting item, but actually we're never going to have a situation where a player starts with an item that doesn't have details, because we can just hard code in all of the details for all these starting items, or all this like starting pool of items. The only time we're going to encounter a new item that doesn't have a description or stats or whatever is when a player combines items. So I think at that point we can just say, we can kind of hack into that combining process and add an extra step saying, okay, also generate the attributes and stats of this item. And the item's not done generating until all of it is generating. So I think that'll be fine. So maybe this won't actually end up happening here. It'll be in the combining of items. We'll create an item just immediately here, and then we will use it and trigger the AI passing this in as a reference. And then we'll have a callback that has the generated properties, deserializes them into that item, and then says the item is done generating. I think that's fine. So let's go ahead and let's clean that up a little bit. This guy, we'll come back and clean that up. This is all fine. I think what we should probably do is just make sure we have no errors right now. Maybe just start the game and make sure that we still have items in our inventory at the start. Cool. Just a bunch of items. Sounds great. Bucket and bucket makes a pet bed. Not sure about that. I think we're going to take that out. But what does a pet bed and a bucket make? A cozy nest. Okay. Pet bed. Bucket and... Huh. That was just a really fast generation, I guess. Yeah, we don't have a bucket and bucket generation recipe. Okay. Well, that all works. So now let's look at where we combine items. So that's on our node controller. On end drag, if we drop it on another item, right? Start combination of two elements, yeah. Let me see where this is called from. Okay, move to workspace panel. So we only combine stuff in the workspace panel. We check to see if we're colliding with anything else in that panel. If there is something, then we start the combination of this plus that. So here, we make sure that there's only one generation happening. That's a technical limitation right now, since we're not passing data around through the callbacks. We're just setting it on the game manager for now, but that's fine. What we're doing is checking for an existing recipe, and we want to find items here rather than doing new item. If there isn't an existing recipe, this is where we're going to start the generation, and what we'll do is at the end of this function, we'll tack on populate the data with AI. If we need it, we might even be able to get it all from this prompt that we set up. So we might not actually even need the prompt of taking in a item name and generating all the properties for it, if we can do it all in this combining prompt. But let me just take a look at this. Yeah, this is if we already have a recipe that exists, whether it's discovered or not. Then we do the immediate combination. We discover this recipe. We load the item data into this new UI component for it. We have so many places that we do new item. That's all going to need replaced with recipe database dot find item or find or create item. Probably just find item. Because there should never be a case where we are combining items that don't, like the individual ingredients don't already exist in our recipe database's item database. Because start of the game, they should all exist with the starting items. So every item in the game should exist in the item database. And then when you combine items, you create one more, and we're going to add that to the item database at that time. So I don't think there's any other way to get an item into the game. So it should always be in the item database. So we can just call find item at that point. So let's just make that real fast. We probably don't even need find or create item, but let's say find item. We can return null. Is that fine? I mean, logically, this should never run, and this should never run. So these are functionally the same, but this one's a little less brittle. If there were a case to get an item into the game that wasn't in the item database, and we tried to, say, combine it with another item, this would go ahead and create it anyway. Logically, I like this more, but I think I would rather get those null reference exceptions using this if something were wrong. So at least we know that there's a logic error somewhere. So we'll use find item. And we're going to go ahead and start recipe. Actually, it's on the recipe database. We can go ahead and say public recipe result of mixing string ingredient 1 string ingredient 2, and we can say return find item and find item, right? Yeah, that should be fine. So then we don't have this huge recipe database dot instance dot blah blah blah, recipe database dot instance dot blah blah blah. Just pass in those names. That is nicer. Okay, so that will or won't give us a recipe. If it does not give us a recipe, here is where we need to, let's bring it over this side. So here is where we are kicking off the AI to say, give me a new item based on A plus B. So we show that loading indicator, put it in the right spot, trigger the generation. So prompt combining ingredients. Let's go make sure that that is using our new prompt. We have prompt combining ingredients. We were using element combining, which just takes in string names, passes out string output names. We now want to use item combining, which passes in serialized items and outputs a serialized item. So then we can deserialize that. So, recipe database. Let's switch over to item combining. Let's rename this guy so we know not to use him. And we'll remove him in a second, but I'll at least keep him around until this new system works. So recipe database uses item combining. So now, instead of passing in just name plus name, what we will do is say item 1, item 2, and maybe we'll even call that, let's say serialized item 1, serialized item 2, ingredient 1. A little too verbose, but who cares? So now we have serialized ingredient 1 as one token that we will replace. We also have serialized ingredient 2 as another token, and we can just say, let's see, how do we get, this is a string, so we can literally just recipe database instance find item with this name. right? Does that take in a string item name? It becomes a item. Let's just call toString for now. We might need to call like a serialized function or something. But I do want to double check to see if that just serializes correctly. You know what? Will this work? Will this serialize to JSON by default, or do I need to call another function, then toString? See what it says. Okay, toStrings not related to JSON serialization. Yeah, I guess we just want to call. How do I serialize the result of find item to JSON? I don't know that are we using Newtonsoft already? We might be. Let's see what else we got. JSON utility. Sure, we can do that. But we want the opposite. It's probably fine though. Where were we? If we do JSON utility dot to JSON. Will that work? We will find out. Cool, so now we should have both items that are ingredients serialized into JSON that pass into the AI prompt with all these properties. We'll want to double check that one, that's serializing correctly, and two, the attributes dictionary is serializing as we expect it to. But it'll pass in these two ingredients to this prompt, and we should have an output that is also a serialized item. So in our getResult callback, instead of doing create new item here, which let's take a quick look at that. Okay, it's just adding it to all items. We're replacing all items basically with our new item database dictionary. So this is the only place that create new item is used, which is a nice little reassurance that there are no other problems where we might be calling this. But we can go ahead and say item is equal to the deserialization of the result. And let's make sure that say public void add item. Let's do that. And that'll remove our create new item. Keep getting lost where I'm at. We can merge two ingredients. At the end of that, getResult. In the new database, we want to add new item. Is that what I called it? Add item. And we also discover that item because the player has seen it. But this should have all of the properties that we expect. Generated new item. And we will say result, and then we can say item. See if it shows us what we're expecting. Cool. And so this doesn't have any extra AI stuff. Like if we wanted to add descriptions or like flavor text to these items, we'd probably just want to add it in to the examples here, inputs and outputs, hard code them in on our starting items, and then we would get those back in this new system that we've built. So I think that'll work. I feel like we can test it now, but we are doing new item in so many places. There might be some wonkiness somewhere. Let's move this down until after we've deserialized the item, and then we'll make sure that this load item data has our new item that we created. We might just do a search for like new item and see where all it's used, but I feel like at this point, if we went in and combined two items, they would have, well, let's add some debug here too of combining two items, and then can output this guy and the second one. So we can see the two inputs. Let's go ahead and debug.log filled out prompt.user prompt so we can see the actual prompt going to the AI. And then we'll get a response back. We'll see the actual response. We'll see what it deserializes to. That should be enough to make sure that this system is working. So let's try that. There's still a bunch of everywhere that we used to call new item with the string name is potentially source of a bug. But if we go over here, clear this, we combine, let's give it a sec to load in a bunch of stuff in the background. If we combine ash and an axe, okay, you got this. We're generating a bunch of people. It's all good. Ash and axe. Combining two items. So we have ash. Right, there's no item types on stuff. We need to hard code those in. That's fine. But we are passing in the correct things. This is the prompt. It's doing item. It's ash twice. So one, that's problem. So let's back up and let's redo that. Make sure that it's correct. We'll give it a sec to generate a bunch of stuff. Alright, B and ash is what we're going to go with. All good on the console. B plus ash. We've got B, ash. The prompt itself is B and ash. Generating a response to that. Let's see. We got back smoke bomb with item type consumable value 3. Attributes visibility reduction 90 and panic chance 30. Sure. So we created an item. We can't really see the properties on that item, but I would assume that it's correct. One thing that we'll also want to add here is in the shop, when you drag in an item, we have it hard-coded to always sell for 1, but now we can go ahead and say sell for whatever the item's value is. But we have an item, so we'll want to customize this item's UI a little bit to show like the item type, maybe as an icon, maybe the value as well. We probably also, oh boy, yeah, we want to update the codex to use the item name here instead of the item, but I think what's happening there is we're calling new item. So that's probably one of the cases where we can just go in and update it real fast and just do the item name. Oh, I see. That's that item. Okay, so yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we want to show a little bit more on the actual UI and also probably add a tooltip that shows more when you hover over it. So maybe on this just at a glance item thing, we just show name and maybe item type. And then when you hover over it, you get the nice tooltip of like item type, name, durability, value, weight, flavor text, that sort of thing. But it's mostly working. If we do smoke bomb and bamboo, we did get... Oh, that's on a location. Right, because we're limiting the tokens, I think. A little too hard on locations, but I think that's fine because we're doing some brittle checking. If there's an error on location, we just generate another one. Smoke bomb launcher. So it's kind of cool, yeah. Smoke bomb and bamboo had a value of 1 and a value of 3. And then our smoke bomb launcher has a value of 5. It became a weapon with a damage value, durability. It has a range value because it's a weapon. That's cool. Okay, so we can work with all that. We're having a lot of stuff generated. Now we need to make sure that it makes sense. And we have the systems in place to use it. Cool. Let me just move that over here. I just realized I never posted in announcements that I was streaming, so I see Andrew did. Thank you very much. I was just gonna go check and see what stuff was going on over there. Cool. Alright, well, let's go ahead and let's see, what do we want to do? We can show, well, let's first of all add our hard-coded in item types. Because that's something that we'll want to add into all of these. I'll just add in the system now and I can add in the types off camera if we need. But let's see here. How do I want to do this? If we say on this guy, create item without AI. I wonder, let me just, is there a way to do named params so I can just pass in value and durability and skip weight? I would love to do something like that. Yeah, that'd be nice. So by default it just does the ordered things, but I can go ahead and name them here. That's nice. So I can go ahead and say string item type is equal to material is just a good default, I think. And then we can say value 0. Okay. And then these are item types of material, so that works. Let's go ahead and just update all of these. Probably don't need to because they're defaulting correctly, but it's a little nicer to be clearer of what exactly you're overriding here, I think. And actually, for all these guys, are any of these another item type? I don't think so. So if we were to just end comma value 1, yeah, these are all materials. Okay, but for these guys, what we can do is let's say item type of tool, and we'll just limit like the items that you can use on objects in the world to tools for now. So you're not like using a snow on a tree. It would be cool if you could do that, but I don't think we can make it consistently predictable enough that, like, what do you get when you use a thorn on a tree? What happens? I don't know. Be cool to find out, but might be a little too out of scope for now. But for all these, let's go ahead and say value. Let's say weight and durability. For all these guys, we want an item type of material probably. It's looking, yeah, those are all materials. Maybe material is the wrong word, but just like items that don't do anything other than combining into other items. I think we want to move bucket up here actually. Let's say value of 1. It's consistent dies him with everything else. And so all these, maybe salve and tincture and ointment, we can make consumables or something. Maybe not. Maybe we want to, let's keep them materials and then you can make potions and stuff with them. So we will say value to item type material. Alright, so now everything, wait, none of these have, or these. Did I just completely forget what I was doing here? And item type material. I could have sworn I looked through all these to make sure they were all materials. And these as well. And item type material. Okay, so now they should all have item types in the ingredients. So that should be great. We will want to add, I think the flavor text will be really cool, but we'll hold off on doing that until we have the UI to properly show it. No sense generating all that text right now or like hard coding it all in when we don't have anything to actually show it with quite yet. But this is looking good. Maybe if we go look at, let's see, a couple different things we could go to. One, maybe let's show the actual value in the store icons. So a store item controller has show item data. Guild cost. Where are we creating these store listings? Let's rename this to, oh, okay. It is set to item.value. Okay, so should actually just work there because we were defaulting all the values to 1. I mean, there's not a lot of items that have a value of 2, but maybe we can open up the store and see tincture or something. So we've got all of our items. We create the store listing. We don't have anything here saying only sell stuff that is 1 or more, actually. But maybe that's fine for now. Like, we could sell stuff for 0 in the store and it just costs 0. Maybe we want to default it to a minimum of 1. We probably do, actually. So let's say make sure the minimum value is 1. And Then we generate 4 more, and then we set the value to 1. So if we get these more expensive ones, the value will be 1. Let's go ahead and comment that out for now, just because we want to make sure that we are seeing that the store has the correct values and we don't have any UI on like which items are discounted yet. Actually, we want to say to do show discounted banner on this item. So let's make sure that, let's actually do this as well. So all the items in the store should be their real value. So if we go over and we click play, we go into the store. Hopefully there's something that is more than 1. And these are looking, let's see, a rune might be one that's, rune should have a value of 2. So it has a value of 1 here. If we were to buy it, okay, it only costs 1. So that's wrong. So let's figure out why. We got our store manager, which is setting all these up. In our show item data, gold cost is set to the value of our store listing, which takes in an item. Let's say debug.log creating store listing for item.name at value. Cool. So let's make sure that we are getting the value passed through all the way, and it's not just like a problem in the UI versus the actual logic. So head on over, populate the store, creating the store listing for all these things. Battery feels like it probably shouldn't be 1. Do how? Oh, right. Are we still using? We are. Artificer starting data. Does this have battery in it? It does. So our starting items pool here. Well, I mean, battery does have a value of 1 if it creates it this way. Okay. Oh, right. And this is, I bet this is pulling from all items, which we're replacing. So 1, let's add item here instead. Recipe database dot instance dot add item, and you know what, we will go ahead and add a nice little helper there, and we'll say well, we can use our finder create item function. So here, for all of these items, we will say, if they've already been created in the global items, grab that item and its data. If they haven't, then we can create it with all the defaults. And we're going to get rid of all these anyway, so this is more just a stopgap. But this at least places it in the item database instead of all items. And then down here, where we're grabbing our, let's trace back through here, random starting or discovered items, we have our starting item pool. Where are we adding to that? Starting item pool. I guess that makes sense. Like, we wouldn't want to populate the store from all items. We want to kind of control what the starting item pool is of the store. So let's, where do we add to this? Gotcha, we added here. So in order to test this, what we should do, in starting data, we add these items to the pool. Let's just, for maybe the elementalist, grab our expensive items, recipe database, or actually global starting data, I guess. Rather than having these items, let's just put some expensive boys in. We got aloe, we got cotton, ointment, we got a bucket, which is value 1, but that's fine. We got vanilla, sugar, and rose. So let's do a value 0 one as well. Air, dirt, time. So the store, when we pick an elementalist, should populate with these items. And we should be able to see the values different, hopefully. Elementalist. Right, we need a recipe. So let's also add air and earth. I don't think we have any recipes for aloe. So I think it's just picking the first item pool. First item in the pool and grabbing a random recipe around it. So let's just put air first. Elementalist. Cool. Store. Everything is 1. And all these are 1 as well. So the value is 1 before we start populating the store. I wonder if this, where are we calling this? Is it before or after? Load global starting data. We only do that in the apothecary? Oh yeah, I guess. Huh. Okay. And also the change we made to the, what's that class called? Artificer. This guy. We don't need to add it to all items anymore. We want to add it to the item database. So now we're actually loading in that global starting data, which is what defines those values. Then we're going through and, well, why are we doing this twice? We shouldn't need to do this. Oh, I see. We are filling up our item database with this, but then these items might be unique to the class. So really we don't need to be doing this. Like, maybe we should just rip all this out now. But let's go ahead and just make sure that this doesn't duplicate items. It does not, so it's fine to do this. If there are any items in this list that aren't in the global list, then it's just going to add them with the default values, and that's fine. But now we are loading those global values by default. We should we should see the store populate with numbers other than 1. More hail. Let's see. Okay, so air is 1, which is not correct, I believe. Let's see here. Let's go make sure it gets added in correctly. Because at this point it should already be in the item database, and then when we loop over it, say air, find or create item should grab the one that already exists, which should have a value of 0. Let me double check that that is air. Air should have a value of 0. So we should see that it's 0, and we can trace forward from there. So clear all that, elementalist. Before we do that, item air has value 0. Okay, we are setting all the correct values. And then when we click to load the store, store manager, restock store, what happens here? So when we first load the scene, that's when we're restocking the store. Random starting or discovered items. Let's make sure that that is using... Okay, our starting item pool is this, sure. Discovered items. Oh. Tricky. So what's happening here is the starting item pool is a list of strings. And that, in this line, is being coerced into a list of items, which is calling this guy, which calls new item. So can I mean, this would be nice, but I don't think I can do this. Recipe database dot instance dot find or create item. Can I do this? I don't know if I can, but maybe if the recipe database is in the scene currently, maybe I can. But what was happening is return new item, obviously, is just giving those default values instead of using the item that we've already created. So let's look. Let's see if that throws an error, because that would fix... I mean, we still want to clean up that interface and like how we're using it everywhere, but that would at least cut out all these errors and like weird bugs until we fix all that. So now all these are, wait, these are all still wrong. These are all still right. Maybe that, I mean, it didn't throw an error, so at least there's that. Let's keep that. Let's say here, let's do the same thing. How do we want to do this? Can say if recipe database dot instance has item or find item, existing item is equal to 0. So we definitely want to keep the name we pass in. I mean, that's the key in the database, but we can also now say value is equal to existing item dot value and so on. Weight, durability, attributes, item type, etc. And there's probably a nicer way to do this, like just serializing this guy and deserializing it into self or something, but only downside of this right now is we need to go update this whenever we add new attributes or new properties on the item. But that's probably fine for now. Really, we just want to make sure value is getting set properly. I don't know if this is what's being called when we're creating the item, but let's double check that. Let's see if it fixed it. Otherwise, we'll keep tracing through. Alright, so we want elementalist. Cool. We are getting errors, which means we are on to something. Let's see here. Null reference. On compare it. Oh. Probably this line. Is it? So if this is null, I think what's happening here, I mean I might be wrong, is that we are, or maybe, I mean it's an item that exists. So it's probably using this with item A and item B is null. So when we're calling B to item name. I think what we can do here is say like if, I mean that's a weird way to do it, but wait, why is that the correct way to check this? And C#? Type check or equality check. Okay, so I should be doing the A is null. Nullable type and has null value versus null value. Huh. So I probably don't even need to do this if I'm correctly doing that. But I mean, maybe we leave that in for now. No, let's take it out because it was nice to have the error at least. So that now, well, I guess we want, wait, did I have equals null there? Okay, not equals null. Let's say that. Let's try this again. See if we still get that error. If we start as an elementalist, no error. Interesting. Oh, and I see the store is going to be correct now. Hopefully. Alright, so cool. What we will see now, this is all correct. We're passing in the values correctly. So now we can go back to our store manager and get these discounts back in place. So we always have items sold for a minimum of 1. And the discount ones are always sold for 1. So now we can go in. And these guys all have their prices. Discounts are always only sold for 1. We should show a little like discounted 50%, 30%, whatever. Based on the actual difference in value from what they were to 1. But these are looking good. Now, hopefully, if we buy vanilla, it will cost us 2 gold. It did. Ointment cost us 2. Time will cost us 1. Alright, aloe. That's the discounted one. Well, let's do ointment. Ointment hopefully doesn't cost us 2. Should only cost us 1. Only cost us 1. Cool. So it works. Cool. Well, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, but then when we come back, we can do the reverse. So we just bought these guys. Ointment is worth 2, but when we sell it, we're only getting 1. So we want to sell for the value that it's worth. And maybe we'll also edit these UIs to show the value when you're in the store or something, but let's at least sell them for the correct value. So I will be right back. Actually, I'll start this so we've got some nice Be Right Back music. Thank you for joining me so far. We've done a lot so far, but we got a lot more to do. Be right back. We are back. Let's see here. Double check everything's looking good. Cool. Alright, so we just got the stores buying items for the correct price. Now let's sell items back. Also, as a small caveat, say hello to Lucy. Very rare cameo. She hates people, but she likes sitting in my lap. And now she's mad I picked her up. Cool. So let's take a look at our store item controller. Store item controller on InDrag. That's where we've dragged it from the store into our inventory where we're buying it. Oh right, that's what we're already doing. Now actually we want our node controller when we drag it into the store. So that would be move to sell point and shop, adjust gold. Now we're actually just gonna do item.value. Easy peas. Lemon squeeze. So that should just work. We probably want a little like floating text of how much we sold it for, but that's more polishy stuff. I just want to make sure that it is selling for the correct amount, and we can update the UI later. A lot of this UI I'm really itching to redo it all, but I feel like it's going to be so much harder to work on a lot of these systems when we have more of this open world RPG rather than just menus. I want to get all these systems working good, and then that's when you can kind of more explore and spend more time chopping down trees and mining rocks and stuff. This is a really nice way to kind of simulate that town and all the people you can run around and talk to, and like see Malcolm reference Juliana's conversations, stuff like that, without having to spend all that time running from one side of town to the next. It's a really tight loop, I'd say, right now. So just want to do all that testing and improvement now, and then we can add in the game side of things later once this is really fun too. So I'm pretty sure air has a value of 0. I just realized. So should you be able to sell? Ooh, maybe we shouldn't. So you can buy air for 1, discounted air to 1. We probably do want to exclude 0 value items from the store altogether. Maybe we'll do that next. But I want to see what happens if we sell air to the store. Yeah, we don't get anything, which I guess makes sense. Yeah, we wouldn't want people to just go, ooh, that's incorrect. Let's fix that next. But we wouldn't want people to go just forage all the items in an area and just immediately go sell them all to the store for gold. If they're free, they should be free. Makes sense. But if we sell aloe, I think that's 2. Yeah, so that sells for the correct amount. Cool. Let's go figure out what's going on with the foraging items, and I think my suspicion is that it's going to be pulling from all items instead of our new item database. So foraging manager, add random forageables, random items of value, 0. In all items, right. So here we just want to say item database dot values, right? Does that work? I think so. And let's also add in a random items of value at least. And then we'll use this for the store. So we can say at least value 1. So let's go update that real fast. And this is from all items. So yeah, I think that's fine. We don't need to necessarily limit the store to just discovered items. It's probably better to have it pull from all items. As we expand the hard-coded items, we'll probably get to some items that we want to have as like more secret. Like if we put in a perpetual motion machine just so we can hard-code in a value of 100 or something and do an achievement for getting it, we probably wouldn't want it showing up in the store, even for 100 gold, or, I mean, in the discounted section for 1 gold. So we'll probably come back to this later to add more like a range of value, but for now, I think we can say random items of at least value, or value at least 13. Or, so we have number, let's do value 1, num of items 13. And let's go ahead and num items. I'm kind of liking these named parameters. It's a lot nicer, I'd say. Let's see here. What do we want to do next? We've got, oh right, we got to show the discounted banner on that item. We should make sure that the foraged items are populating correctly now. I expect that they will, but let's, I guess, double check that. We're going in on the elementalist each time. We probably want to make sure that this works on all the other classes as well, but we do have forageable items now, and they cost nothing. It updates the amount. There's 5 now, so if we were to give Julian some air, I think that quote-unquote ends the day, which is, we'll have that on a timed cycle in the world, but it does add more forageable items every day for you to go out and get, so that's good. Oh right, we also, maybe let's go fix this. Let's get a new recipe. So this here, when we create a new recipe, our Gale Force Ring, which is an item type accessory, that's awesome. Value of 3. Increases speed and agility, sure. But the problem is this. So let's take a look at that. Let's first commit what we've got though. Let's say new item system. Wow. Sorry, Andrew, but that was my commit message. Alright, so let's kind of just trace through where we combine items. So on in drag, start combination of 2 elements, merge 2 ingredients at is when we don't have a recipe. So here, when I guess we can get rid of this output now that we know all that's working, and this as well. But here, I imagine where we're creating our recipe, discover new recipe, we're probably passing in, the result, which is now a serialized item. We want to actually pass in item.item name. Or maybe we want to just pass in, ingredient 1 is a serialized item as well, right? Where is this stored? Recipe generation in progress. Oh, I guess it's just the names. I think that's fine for now. Let's rename this and this to ingredient 1 name, ingredient 2 name. And that's fine. Where were we? Here. So discover new recipe. We will just say ingredient 1 name, ingredient 2 name. I guess we don't need to have the actual items on that. If we have the name and we need some property of it, we can just say recipe database.find item of that name. But now we're passing in the item name instead of all that property. So that should be correct now. I guess just so we'll test that in a sec. What we want to do, let's make sure that all of our classes are calling load global starting data. And we can just, I think this is the same for all classes. So let's go ahead and make sure that that is the case for everyone. Oh, just in the block. Cool, starting data. We got apothecary, elementalist, artificer. Let's just make sure that that is the same. And then mysticist is the last one. And again, this is clunky. We're gonna replace all of these. I just wanted to have some different ways to test, starting out with different items. But pretty soon, probably in the next release after this one, we'll have more of a starting tutorial that will teach you the ropes, and then it'll start you off with a specific set of items that we're gonna have them all hard coded and have a little bit more control over the start of the game. We'll probably hardcode in some of the first quests that you do for NPCs so you can kind of ease in, where it's more like, oh, I'm throwing a birthday party, can you make me a cake? And you have flour and egg and whatever in your inventory. And then you get more into these fantastical problems and you can craft weirder and weirder items. But for now, this has served well for if we want to test these items specifically, you start as an apothecary. If you want to test these items, start as a mysticist, and so on. But let's start. What did we just fix? Oh, right, the codex. So let's start and let's load in as, say, like a mysticist. Make sure everything's looking good. Let's combine some items, batwing and ant, maybe a flying ant. Potion of agility, sure. But now this is correct. So we can see the recipes correctly again. All right, cool. So let's make the jump. Let's say fix codex recipe result formatting. Let's make the jump and go remove all items entirely. And then let's see where the errors are. Let's fix them. So we've got all items used in a few places. We're going to start cutting stuff now that we've committed. So here we've replaced all items with item database. Starting item pool, we're probably going to gut as well because we're going to hardcode that in somewhere else, but we'll leave it for now. Let's start by saying, where are errors? Awesome, yeah. A lot of them. Right. Actually, we are no longer using this method at all, since now we have our hard-coded in global starting data, which is what we'll use for this. We started out putting the items in a list in the inspector, and then we moved towards something like this, which let us populate that inspector from code. And now we finally have come full circle and it's all in code. So, cool. Load global starting data no longer needs all items because we're no longer using this. We do still need all recipes, I think. I'm a little surprised this actually works, but I guess it works because I see this is in the will be removed folder. We're not going to remove this specifically, just everything else that uses this. I guess since we are in a scene with the recipe database in it already is why this works. But let's go ahead and let's take this guy, put him here, go to our recipe database. Let's add a nice function for adding these recipes, which surely we already have. Discover new recipe. Sure, it seems like we should be able to do this. Make sure there's no duplicates, and then adds it to discovered recipes. No, we want all recipes. Okay. Let's add a public void add global recipe. Cool, so that's what we're doing here instead. Maybe let's do this. Let's say string ingredient 1 name, string ingredient 2 name, string output item name. So here we can say, I think this takes strings, doesn't it? Yeah. Ingredient 1 name, ingredient 2 name, output item name. So we don't need to do that casting. We can just do this, which is basically what we're doing over here, which you probably can't see. Oh, okay. My face wasn't covering it. We can just go ahead and say this. Just throw it in there, and then now all of these guys, which let's first sort them all since I've been chucking stuff in while we've been playtesting. The keyboard shortcut for that in Visual Studio is bonkers. You got Shift Alt L, Shift Alt S. Cool. So now let's multiple cursor all the way down. I feel like I need elevator music here. Cool, cool. So now we can say recipe database dot instance dot add global recipe, and then we hit end, delete a parenthesis, and we are good to go. There's probably better ways we could format this, but it's nice and short, so we don't have a lot of like syntax garbage when we just want a bunch of logic and data in. Cool, so now that handles all our starting recipes, which we should probably make that look nicer, but another time. Cool. So let's look at other errors we might have. This guy, right, no longer takes a parameter, or no longer needs a parameter at least. It's a hash set. I guess so. So let's get rid of that and that. This is no longer needed. Wow, we're calling that 5 times. Oh, for each class. Okay. And we don't have to pass like all this through. Let's load starting data. So all these can just become this, which is much nicer. Again, we're going to get rid of all that anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but it's nice to see it all go away. Cool. All right, more errors. What have we got here? All recipes, all items. Sure, we can keep that in. Recipe database dot instance dot item database dot count and recipe database dot instance dot all recipes dot count. It's a little weird that like we have a recipe database that has an item database in it, and then it has just like all recipes as a property. But we don't really want to decouple the item database and the recipe database into two separate databases, so I think this is fine for now. I'm a little suspicious that all this is going to work, because I feel like there was a reason we passed all that through. But let's keep fixing these bugs, and then we'll run through and make sure everything is still fine. This guy, load starting data, sure. Oh, well, we shouldn't have to be loading this in our load starting data if we've already done it here. So let's actually get rid of all these and just believe in ourselves. Because it should already be called up here. Okay, And then this guy, starting game, item database dot count, and all recipes dot count. Should have like 2 more. Yeah. Random from all items. We can say recipe database, or item database, I guess. Item database dot count. Is that a dictionary? It is. So we actually want dot values and dot values. I think that should be fine. Can I just get the values? Does that not return a list of items? Type dictionary string item. Is that an old? It is this line. Alright. So let's just say list item all items is equal to, oh, to list is what we're missing. Let's just do this. And then we don't have to grab that list every time we iterate through the loop. Okay. Let's see here. That is all the errors. So, crossing my fingers now that if we press play, everything is going to be fine. We have items in our inventory. We can combine them. Looks like there's items to forage. There's items in the shop. Got a bucket of fertilizer. From what did we combine? Bucket and ash. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe we'll hard code in that one in real fast. Global starting data. We want ash and a bucket. Fertilizer. Oh, ash and dirt. Sure. Alright. So, store has items. A little suspicious that they're all 1 cost, but I think they are. Aloe, herb, mint, nectar, blood mushroom, pollen, rose, spice, sugar. Yeah, we don't have any of the 2 cost ones in there. Okay, that's fine. It's probably fine. Notably, we don't have any of the 0 cost ones in there, so that change to make sure they cost at least 1 seems to have worked. If we buy an item, fruit costs 1. Probably gave us 1. Let's double check. We got no bark. Now we have bark. Cool. If we sell an item, chisel gives us 1. What's an item that costs 2? Maybe mint, herb, or nectar. Oh, I guess, yeah, there's not a lot of... We picked apothecary, I think. Most things are. Or I guess we picked artificer. We should move a lot of these items into the global starting data, but that's just a little boring to do on stream. I'll do that off stream. I want to move all these from each of the classes in, so everything that you start with is hard-coded. But if we forage, you get some water. Let's go make sure it's adding properly. So we have 3 time. Now we have 4 time. We still want to stack those actually. But I also want to think about how we want to implement durability and make sure that it doesn't overlap. So, like, somebody suggested that if you were to buy that 4th time, this should already be stacked in your inventory as like time times 3. And when you bring this in, it should be time times 4. But there's a little bit of weirdness of like, how do you... I mean, I guess it's fine if you can drag out times 4. It becomes times 3, then becomes times 2. It's probably fine. time and time is a stain. That seems like we want a different one. Stain and wax. What do we get there? A candle? Yeah, we still want to tweak the item logic a little bit more. But things are looking good. We got our full item system working here. Maybe let's transition a little bit more towards UI so we can show off these new properties. And we've been going for about 2.5 hours now. Maybe if we shoot for like 3 or a little bit more, depending on how long this takes, we can show off some of these item properties that we've built. And then we can maybe at the very end add flavor text items. So let's go ahead and let's go take a look at some of our UI. We've got our element, which we probably should at this point rename that to like item display. I feel like I probably just broke a bunch of references anytime we mention that prefab, but maybe not. But what we want to do here, we have our element node controller. Let's go ahead and just rename that to, let's get crazy. Let's call this an item display controller. It's got our load item data, so that's where we're gonna kind of populate these UI elements that we're about to build. Let's say we have a text here. Let's add an item type. Let's rename this to item name. We have so many errors right now for some reason. Did I just hit tab? Alt tabbing or something? Okay. So we've got our item name. Let's scoot that over to like yonder. Let's scoot this guy over here. We'll probably want to do like a horizontal layout group or something, but let's just get this nice and basic. Let's do a 12, so material fits. Let's scoot them over a little bit. Text is fine, and then we'll make that left aligned. So now in our item display controller, we've got a item name label. We've got an item type label. Item type label dot text is equal to item dot item type. We could put the cost over here, actually. We might as well. While we're here, we're gonna redo most of the UI anyway, but we might as well have like the data in place that we can move around. Item value. Let's make him a little smaller. Like that. Let's make the name stretch out like that. And let's make this guy yellow. Cool. So that should now populate correctly. It doesn't look vertically centered, but maybe it is. So this should now have like material, weapon, armor, etc. Value should be on the right hand side. We call load item data and pass in an item. So it should already have all of that data that we need. Let's just double check all the places we're calling that. Make sure we're not doing like a new item beforehand. We draw inventory list, has all the items. Load item data. I see Lucy in the background, giving herself a little bath. Cool. So let's see if that worked. It's possible we need to reset some references. Might get a null reference error, but at least she'll tell us what we need to update. We go in. Oh, right. And we didn't set the actual references that we added. So item display, this guy, item name label, item type label, item value, item. I didn't realize we could serialize it into the inspector. That's cool. We'll do like a border for the rarity. We'll put the description or flavor text or something below. Or maybe put that in the hover, actually. But now we've got those references. Let's try this again. Mysticism. These all are worth 1. That's kind of cool. I really don't like that font though, but at least you can kind of see. They don't have material as an item type, but maybe if we combine a leaf and a mermaid scale. Accessory. Okay, so we're getting there. Combine some magic in that. We need to make sure that these all initialize correctly, and we'll also make that a little bit wider. I don't think we need to go smaller. We can go wider. Element of elemental mastery. Let's put in more magic. Make it more expensive. Arcane mastery. More magic. Enchanted amulet of ultimate arcane power. Now that we want to give to the dragon scholar, who I guess we do want to double check that giving these new items to the NPC works, because I just realized these are going to have like attributes and stuff, which actually this guy has magic power boost 50. We want to make sure that the NPC can see those attributes too. Just in terms of if you get, say, a potion with flight for 5 minutes or something, and you give that to someone whose problem is like, I can't reach the apples in my tree, but it's a item called potion or something, they want to be able to see like, oh, well, it has this property that will help. This guy, each time I draw near the steaming crater to observe the beast, force renders me invisible. Let's give him our enchanted amulet of ultimate arcane power. Might not help, but seems really powerful. Cool. Does help. Alright, so let's get these materials. I bet that's just, let's take a look at, what was that? Mysticis starting data. So all of these guys, find or create item is getting called, and they're not defaulting to an item type of material. Because we are not setting it. So, yeah, this seems like there's probably a better way to map all the properties into initializing an item, but I'm not familiar with it. I'm no C# master. But this should at least set our item type correctly. Let's put that at the top. It's important. And then let's go take a look at our NPC logic. Does this item solve this quest? So we will pass in, let's actually grab an example here. good one. Maybe Potion of Fire Resistance is a good one to give him. And does this item solve this quest? Item example is now that. And this item will also need that. Okay. So we just need to make sure that those get inserted correctly now. This, well, let's see. Leaving me invisible int. My voice fades into silence under the moon's light. Let's say silence resistance. Sure. And it has a silence resistance of 90. Doesn't make any sense or do anything, but that is the item he needs. Sure. And this guy needs a bottle of milk. And it does a health restore of 1. Sure. And it does not help, so output is 0. Let's go to our stranger manager, which I think is where we are inserting these items. Here, item submitted for current quest. Ooh, is a string. Okay, so we're going to need to change that to an item. Let's make sure we don't have any current errors. We do not. And let's just do that and then fix all our errors. So here, we actually want JSON utility dot to JSON. Does that work? Is that how we did it last time? And so that's for, does this item solve this quest, which is this guy. We are putting in the item here, task and item fits the pattern, and then yes or no is from our response to that, so he's going to output yes or no. From that, we call generate the NPC response to that item, which we also need to put in the new item. We don't really need to put in, the full item. It's probably better, but we could get away with just the item name. But let's go ahead and put in the full item details anyway. Cool. So one other interesting side effect of that is now all of these properties, all of these properties now serialize. So we probably want to start labeling stuff of like serialize this, don't serialize this. But for now, like all this makes sense to serialize, I think. So it's fine. Cool. We have no more errors. So we are now successfully storing the submitted item as an item and not just the name. So let's go make some items. Let's go show them to people. Let's make sure that our starting items all have material on them. They do. It's cool. We got tools. We'll switch that out with icons or something. But for now, it's fine. All right, Isolde, what do you need? Bundle of grass, also free. Add in more grass. Grass mat, add in more grass. Enchanted grass bed. Oh, it's furniture now. Interesting. Okay. The volcanic ash from our volcanoes has bestowed upon me a peculiar affliction. Whenever I step into moonlight, my skin becomes as translucent as the ash-laden air. This not only hampers my nocturnal explosion, so you just become translucent. So let's give you like Enchanted alchemy set. Here's some ointment, first aid kit, and more ointment. A healer's pack. Restorative ointment. Sure, that'll probably be vague enough to work. Maybe. Did not work. That's fine. Okay, well, we still need to style this UI a little bit more. But maybe we can do a very basic like tooltip or something when you hover over it. We still, for this demo, this is all built on the new Chroma Golem API, which just does text generation right now, but I mean, it's all specialized for like AI, or for game development specifically. So right now we're just doing text generation, but we're about to add image generation, so it's going to be perfect to add in icons for the people, for item types, maybe the item itself. Yeah, actually we probably want to add an item for the item, or add an image for the item itself. Maybe a little icon for the item type. But we are still working on image generation, so that'll come soon. But if you have liked what we're building, you can get started with the Chroma Golem API for free. We give a bunch of credits for free when you sign up. You got a bunch of cool stats. You got some choose your model. We're working on a lot of other stuff. You've also got a bunch of details on players, anonymized stuff, of course, but you can kind of see your whales and how much your average cost per player is, stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. We're still building it out, and we'd love to hear feedback on it, but that's what we've been building here. That's kind of why we're not immediately jumping into the image generation here. We're still working on that for the API, but it's coming real soon. Just doing text generation in this demo right now. But I think let's try and get some tooltips working, and let's wrap up the stream with that, I think. So if we go back to our item display, actually what I probably want to do, let's go to our component library and look to see if there's anything that looks like it'd be nice for a tooltip that kind of follows your mouse around when you hover over an item, I think. This is looking probably our best bet. So let's take that. This is all from a asset on the asset store. I forget the name, but I'm sure I can show it. I'll put it in the description of the video or something. It's a mobile UI pack that I got on sale a little while ago, but it's been pretty nice to pick and grab pieces and lay stuff out pretty quickly. Let's see here. So now if we go over to, let's say, our town simulator, let's paste that into the canvas. And we'll call this an item tooltip. So let's give it a item tooltip controller, UI controller, I guess. And let's make it a prefab. Cool. So in here, let's see what we can do. Close all but this. Close all but this. So it's going to have a item icon. Let's break this into a couple: item name, item description, item type, item value, and so on. So let's kind of move these around. This guy. So put our name up here. Actually, let's do this. Let's go kind of like this. Let's put our type above it. So let's make this guy like 20. And uppercase. Kind of like this. Maybe we also darken him a little bit. So type, name. Let's move him up a little bit. So now we've got our description, which we'll probably want to stylize a little bit more, put in a little box or something, but that'll work for now. Maybe we do this, put it top and wrap it. And probably also drop it down to like 30, also a little darkened. Just a little bit. It's a little weird having the 3 different colors, but I don't necessarily want to match the type and description, and I don't want both text and description to be pure white, so we'll come back with a design eye on that. But this guy, now we can say 5 or whatever. Let's put him centered. Let's give him a cost right there. Actually, let's do this and then right align him. So as he gets larger, it goes correctly in the right direction. Let's make him yellow as well. We'll probably give him like a coin backdrop or something. Maybe for the item icon, is there anything else we can use as more of a placeholder, like bag? 512 by 512. There we go. That'll work. So let's actually move all these guys over more towards the center of the open space. Let's put the value a little further that way. It's going to be fine. Maybe item name and description we can move down just a tad. And description, let's turn on auto size. Max of like 30. Cool. That's a little bit too far. Okay. Cool. So we will have this script populate the text of the item, or the content of the item. Let's give it a public void load item data. Item. We've got our public text mesh pro UGI item type label. Item name label. Item description label. Item value label. So here we can, let's also store the actual item itself, I think. Public item shown item. And we'll probably want to pool these or something instead of creating them and deleting them every time we hover over an item or end hovering, but pre-optimization, say it with me. Item type label dot text is that, sure. Probably don't need to string that because it's already a string, but Doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt. Cool, so that should now allow us to populate all the text. We'll add in, obviously, populating the image there as well, but for now this is fine. So really what we want to do is when we hover over an item display, that's when we want to create an instance of our item tooltip prefab and position it at the mouse, and then probably store it or store a reference to it so when we hover out of this display it destroys it. Let's see where this error is. In the editor. Okay, well that's probably fine for now. Well, with the tooltip, I think we're going to get rid of the type here. So let's actually do this. Let's move our value over a little bit. And in this guy, let's update that script real quick to not do the type. It's fine. And so now we want to trigger when we start hovering over it, but we also want to probably not show the tooltip when we are like dragging it. So let's start a region tooltip. And let's say public voids show tooltip. Public void hide tooltip. That seems fine. Let's do our public game object prefab item tooltip. We can probably make that a class of the item tooltip. Can we do that? Item tooltip. Will that make a full on prefab? I'm not sure. Let's try. Item tooltip here. Cool. So when we instantiate that, it's probably just going to create a game object with that script, right? How does it know like the hierarchy and whatnot? Which I guess we can set these references while we're here. So here, let's just see what happens. So item display. Let's see. Show tooltip on UI hover. Mouse enter. What do you got? On pointer enter? Do I need an interface with that? I pointer enter handler? Yeah, okay. I pointer exit handler? Sure. Okay. Let's make sure that that's working. We'll go in and just see if we get those when we hover over items. See, we still have an error, but I think it's an editor error. It's weird. We don't have any items. Oh, right, we need to start in the right scene. And this item tooltip, got no overrides, so we can delete that guy. He should be good to go. Start screen. Clear. Okay, no more editor errors. It's a little weird. See what we got. Apothecary. Okay, these are looking better without the really tiny text. We errored on a location, that's fine. I need to just go increase the tokens, I think. What were we even doing? Oh, right. Hovering over items. Okay, so showing tooltip for Ash, hiding tooltip for Ash. Okay, yeah. And then it'll also work in your inventory, which is really cool. We probably want it like, if this is the tooltip here, and this is my cursor's position, we probably want it on the left bottom, just because, I mean, I guess we could do like this. When you hover over these, we don't want it moving to the right, because it's going to overlap there. So if we did it on this positioning, up and to the left, it'll look really good in the inventory list, and I think we'll always have enough space here that it'll not be in the way or get truncated anywhere. So I think that's cool. Ash and cotton. I really just want to combine a bunch of items. It's so fun. Smoke cloak. Yeah, I need the tooltips so we can see all these stats. We still gotta add in like defense and weight and durability and stuff to the tooltip, but we'll add that next. I know we said 3 hours, and it is now 3 hours, but I want to get this working. So let's show our tooltip. Let's say public game object shown tooltip is null. We can say shown tooltip is that. We can instantiate it, parent it to this, I think, which should be fine. Why is this erroring? Oh, maybe it's because it's not a game object. I was wondering if this would actually work or not. Yeah, let's just do that. Cool. And then that guy. So I think in this load item data, maybe we can just also have a like public void lock to mouse. Or maybe we don't even need that. We just public update position tooltip to follow the mouse. Yeah. And I think our Z is 10 actually, but we'll double check that. It's not important. So here we could have some sort of boolean of like lock to mouse, true or false, and only do that. But I think what's going to happen is it'll show it while we're hovering, it'll lock it to the mouse, and then as soon as we leave hovering, it's going to destroy it, so the update isn't going to matter. We do want to make sure that it's not a raycast target, because it might block what we are hovering over. Like if we hover over an item here and then it shows up on top of our cursor, we might not be hovering over the item. So we're just going to remove that raycast target. And then, yeah, that's probably fine. We can say destroy shown tooltip, and then we'll just obviously say to pool this instead. And that's when we would want to like have the flag of locking it to the cursor or not, because it'll still exist somewhere, it just won't be visible. And we'll load the new data and make it visible whenever we pull from the pool. Okay. So this seems suspiciously fine. Easy. We are getting our mouse position, setting our position to that. We want some sort of offset, I think, but let's see. It's probably going to position it in the center of our cursor, so we might even be able to... Can we make the anchor, like... Where'd you go? That's what I wanted. Something like that. I don't know if that's going to be a weird offset or why it's like moved on this canvas instead of just setting that. Maybe we just set this. Right, and then, yeah, okay. So I think that is fine, and then we'll just update these points. Let's just look. So we should get tooltips now, at least. Let's see. And I'm just now realizing we did the opposite of the direction we wanted. But, no, oh right, we didn't set that prefab. Okay. So on the item display, we need to set prefab item tooltip, which is item tooltip. Let's make this shown tooltip private, so we're not getting it in the inspector and other scripts aren't thinking they can do something with it. Let's try that again. Because it was trying to instantiate that, which is what we want. Let's take this guy. Okay, we erred on something. It's... Okay, it's showing up down here, which is not what we want. But it is showing up and hiding correctly. It's just, like it shows up originally in the right spot, I think. But then that update function is sticking it down here. So let's take a look. This is probably not... Well, I think it has to do with how we are moving it around. So I want to undo the item tooltip. Let's put it back in the center. And so I'm guessing that it's going to lock into our cursor like this. So we can probably just like do this. We'll find out. Okay. Prefab's not set again. On the item display. Sure. Did we set it while in play mode or something? Let's try this once more. Okay. Tooltips are showing again. Still in the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and screen to world point. I don't think that's what we want. I think we want screen to like viewport, or like it's just screen point, I think. Mouse screen position for UI. What do you got? Sure, yeah, that's probably fine. I don't think we need to cast it to world position. And we still have a tooltip set. There, okay, yeah, it's centered. It's in the way, but doesn't go away. Wonder why. I mean, it does sometimes. But it's looking nicer. We're getting there. So this item tooltip. Let's put that position back like this. We want it like this, I think. Or is it this? I think it's this. Let's see if that changes it. Does what I think it does. Internal server error. Is that on our API? Ruh-roh. That's suspicious. Did we just hit some rate limits or something? I might have to go check that out after the stream. Let me just check that admin panel real fast. Getting a few errors. Okay. It's probably fine, but we'll double check it after the stream. Yeah, I wonder if, well, the tooltip's looking good. We want to definitely position it somewhere in the hierarchy where it overlaps everything, but I think we want to do the opposite of what we just did. So this guy, instead of there, we want this one. Right, I think. So let's check that. Elemental list, air. I mean, I guess we could have it centered too. Like centered and above, like kind of like this. But at least they're showing and hiding correctly. Let's go ahead and create our town simulator, canvas, active dragging area. Let's say active tooltip area. Covers everything, and we'll put that on the gameplay references. So there, we now want to put this on gameplay references dot instance dot active tooltip parent, so it'll show over everything. I think that might be good. Let's see how it looks that way, and then let's see how it looks up and centered. And then maybe I'll call it for the stream and go check out what's going on with the API. Add context where? Oh, right. I can't start from that screen. Things are looking real good though. I'm liking the tooltips. I've been meaning to do them for a while. We did not set that reference. Back to the town simulator. Gameplay references. Active tooltip area. Cool. Back to the start screen. Mist assist. Amulet. Amulet Batwing. These are looking good. Good tooltips. They'll look better with descriptions. I am thinking maybe up and centered is probably going to be better. And I think, yeah, we can't combine items. Things are breaking. But the UI is looking good. Shows and hides correctly for the most part, except for when you combine an item, it's not killing the tooltip that was showing. So we want to make sure that that's working, but maybe I'll do that off camera. Let's look at up and over on this tooltip. So instead of here, we want here. Let's see how that looks. And then maybe we can just kind of position it a little bit to the side. So axe, yeah, that's looking good. You can see like up below it, but it's just more information above it. Follows your cursor. Yeah, that looks great, I'd say. And then we do have a bug here where when you are showing this tooltip and you combine it, clay and axe, you never get that on exit trigger because we just destroy the object. So we'll go ahead and let's clean that up, and then we'll call it done. So let's say hide tooltips, what we're gonna call, and then we can say hide tooltips for both items on this one and also the element we dropped it onto. So let's double check that, and I think things are looking really good today. I want to go check out that API, make sure things are just erroring for me and not other people. I think I hit a rate limit, so we're testing out rate limits just to make sure you don't overspend what you wanted to spend. So hopefully that's working. Bucket and chisel, tooltips disappear. Looks great. Alright, well, that is Elixir Emporium. It's been almost 3.5 hours now. It's been wonderful having you guys for the ride. We are working on this game and several other demos. Andrew's working on a really cool multiplayer. I'll let him talk about it. Cool multiplayer game. And we've also put out 3 or 4 other demos before this that kind of experiment with AI in new ways. This has been a really fun one to test out our new API and kind of really show off all of the different ways you can use AI in games. Generating those NPCs, obviously talking to those NPCs, but also generating quests that are consistent with facts about the NPC and also facts about like the location they're in. It's been really cool to see the like AI logic under the hood of like generating quests for those NPCs and then also letting you give them any item you want and asking the AI like, hey, does this item with these properties solve this quest for this person? So that's been really cool. I think there's a lot more to do. I think it's going to be really, really cool. I've been enjoying working on it, and I will continue working on it. There's a list of stuff that I know that I mentioned that I do off stream. I actually do game development full time, so I stream this sort of game dev stream every Tuesday. If this has been fun or you're interested, feel free to hit that follow button below. We also have a Discord for game developers and AI enthusiasts, people experimenting with AI in games, really just like people that are really interested in the next generation of games or getting into game development and using some of these newer tools that makes that a lot easier. The link to our Discord is also in right below the stream, so check that out as well. We'd love to have you. It's been really fun. I want to go check out this API stuff, so I will see you guys next week, or maybe I'll stream before then. We'll see. I sometimes do bonus streams, but Tuesday's my day, so thank you guys for having me. See you next time.